Hello, everyone. So I am Wendy. Hello, hello. Today I'm going to be talking about relationships. And right now in the world, it seems like, no one can stay married. No one can, the divorce rate has been going up, up, up. And now, for decades it was doing this. And now people don't even want to get married. And many people have found their lives unfulfilled because we don't know how to react, how to be in a relationship, right? A long-lasting relationship. And, a lot of people like to say, well, I look to nature, right? And most animals in the animal kingdom, they mate for life, most of them. And the ones that don't, well, they are the ground dwellers, okay? It is the birds, the ones who have ascended, who mate for life. And they work to accomplish this. They have to work as a team, the birds, right? In their parenting, they share responsibilities. The ascended ones have, right? There are a lot of chosen ones who have just said, I'm not interested in relationships. And yet, is that an answer for humanity? Is that the best solution? As people age, they have to face the fact that they're going to die alone, right? As their family dies off and everything. A lot of people are realizing that the holidays don't have the same festive spark that it once did. And it's because the family structure has fallen apart. And there are a lot of things that contributed to this. Let me just go back a century and a half, okay? So I'm just going to point out some things that contributed. Briefly, I'll talk about it. For instance, slavery has affected the families, okay? So as slaves, people weren't even given the opportunity to, many times the slaves were bred and then sold off, all right? So that was not a good example, a good template on how to have a healthy family structure. When slavery was abolished, then it also, those people went out, this generation. It's like they lost the idea of how to be in a relationship. And then let's just look at what happened. So a lot of the slaves, right, the descendants of the slaves, they went in and they became musicians and songwriters. And they became powerful influencers. So like during the 80s and 90s, they influenced the music industry and put out a lot of garbage as far as, how the men treated the women and how they regarded the women. And so there was kind of like a war of the sexes, right? Back and forth as men treated women bad, and then women fought back and treated men bad, all right? So everything was out of whack, really bad. It was like everything was coming to a crescendo in the 80s and 90s. As women fought for their rights, that began during the women's suffrage, okay, in the late 1800s. Good things came from this. Women were given the right to vote. There was lots of good things that came from women's suffrage. However, a lot of bad things happened as well, because as women gained more and more rights, entered the workspace, then there wasn't a good, loving, nurturing person at home to help with the children. And so these children grew up, and then they became a little bit dysfunctional, all right? So again, the war of the sexes, back and forth for generation after generation after generation until now here we are, and things are a huge mess. And many of us have woken up to it, but how do we fix it? Right? So another example is television, because, well, let me back up a little bit. Let's talk about war. War has played a role. We had 2 world wars in the 1900s, and millions and millions of people were killed during those wars. And, so there was a lot of damaged children who didn't have father figures, didn't have a solid family structure. And, the world is only as good. What is that phrase? You're only as strong as your weakest link, right? So we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. And if we are broken as individuals, that ripples out. And so then you have more war and more chaos, okay? So yes, wars have played a part in why we have lost the programming on how to have a solid and healthy relationship. With more and more women having to support the families because number one, they dealt with the wars. Number two, divorce rates were high. People didn't know how. A lot of the people that came back from those wars were traumatized with post-traumatic stress syndrome and different things. They didn't know how to be a loving father when they were off overseas killing mothers and children. Okay, so again, they brought that back. Okay, and many of those men were very harsh, and so it just added to the war of the sexes, men against women. And then, so here comes the television, right? Because you've got all these dysfunctional people, generation after generation after generation, and women are now in the workplace trying to gain some control of their life because they're tired of being under the thumb of a man, right? The control of a man. So they go out into the workplace. And now we're talking about, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And the children are being raised by the television. All right. And not all television program is good. It wasn't so bad when it first started off. You had shows like Howdy Doody. All right. You had good shows. But as time progressed, a lot of those shows were replaced with shows that showed dysfunction, all right, and in the family. Now, number one, that dysfunction existed. So it was shining light on the truth that there are dysfunctional families out there. Unfortunately, it humorized and normalized dysfunction, all right? And I'm not going to name some of the culprits, but there were many. Look through some of the most popular sitcoms through the 80s and 90s, and you will see that they were definitely dysfunctional. So now, as awakened individuals, we have been chosen. We see the mess. Where do we go from here? Do we shut off? Do we just say, not my problem, right? Not my problem? Or do we actively address the issue and try to offer solutions? All right. So, like I said, we as individuals are a microcosm of the macrocosm. There is us within ourselves. There is a trinity within ourselves, okay? Masculine, feminine, and divine energy, all right? And what I mean by that is there are, for those who don't know, all right, there are 2 hemispheres of the brain. And each one behaves differently. All right, you got one that's deals with logic, and another one that's creative. All right, and so they have to interact and find balance for enlightenment. All right, and so as individuals, that is how we achieve enlightenment. All right, by balancing out our masculine and feminine energies, the opposites, our logic and creative. Okay, so as individuals, now to carry that over, if we as individuals are healed, how do we begin to heal the world? Well, the next step would be to find a counterpart that is in alignment with you, who is healed as well. And when you find that person and you're able to heal that relationship, then you're able to have a bigger, more powerful influence on the world. And so, the Bible says, where two or more are gathered in my name, there I will be also. All right? So God blesses unions that work well together. Okay, so here's the problem. We, over the centuries, men have dominated over women. Okay? And it put women in a position where they had to fight back. And so, what did that look like? Well, it looked like women's suffrage. It looked like women divorcing men who didn't know how to love them. Okay? And it looked like abortion. It looked like all kinds of bad things as women fought back. Okay? And so, because men have been rulers over the house, but they have been oppressive rulers. They have been empowered by their bad programming, being victims of war and stuff like that, victims of slavery, victims of all generational things going down line. But how do we fix it? And it all has to do with changing your programming, changing your mindset, changing your perspective of things. So we know that dictatorship is very oppressive, and yet many men feel like they have to dominate within their families, dominate their women, dominate their children. And this is what has caused with the issue of people fighting back with, now people, parents can't even hardly punish their children without the fear of the repercussions. Did I say that right? Anyway, of the backlash of the school system or whatever. And so these children are growing up with very little structure. I mean, it's like you have to throw up your hands because you can't even raise your children. The Bible says, spare the rod and spoil the child. Now, I'm not saying beat your children, okay? Bruises and things, I'm not into that, all right? Breaking sticks on your children, not good, okay? But you have to be able to reprimand your children and correct them without the fear of the state coming down on you. I'm just saying. And because there is this fear, many people have just washed their hands. They don't even want to mess around with raising kids anymore. The world's a mess. The government has moved in to correct a problem with abusive parents, but there's kind of an overcorrection, which is now, now parents, they are being abused by their own children, and the children have the rights, okay? There's a problem. So, because we are a microcosm of the macrocosm, how do we fix this? And I told you, you got to change your programming, your perspective. And first, the healing has to happen within yourself. You find someone who is equally healed, you build a relationship, and you find balance. Now, in my thumbnail, you will see there's a scale. All right, and on one hand you have the man, and on the other hand you had the woman, and below them was fire, the fire of hell. Okay, so if the man is raised up, and the woman falls down on that scale, then she is being oppressed, and she is in an emotional state of mind. She is in hell. Okay, and this would be like the narcissists. Okay, so narcissistic relationships puts one of the people in hell. All right, either way, man, woman, whatever. If the woman is lifted up and the guy is descends into hell. Okay, there has to be balance. So let's talk about this. It's like our government system. We know what a monarchy is like. We know what a dictatorship is like. And we have examples of democracy. All right, democracy was created for the purpose of creating balance. All right, so you have the executive branch, and this would represent the masculine energy within the dynamics of a relationship. Okay, a man, they need to feel like they're in control. They need it. A woman doesn't need it. They just want to be heard and they want to be respected. But a man, he's built differently and he needs to feel like he has control. All right, this is the executive branch. A woman represents the legislative branch. Why? Well, just for biblical reference, let's look at this. In Revelation, it talks about the New Jerusalem, right? And it compares the New Jerusalem to a bride. So in the, if a bride, what does New Jerusalem even mean? It means the new teachings of peace, okay? And so teachings are legislation. They are the rules. They are the guidelines. Why is a female connected to the idea of the rules and things? It's because a woman, ideally in a perfect situation, a woman stays home and raises the children. Therefore, she is at home all the time while the man is out, he's out hunting, he's out, earning a living, okay? So the woman stays home with the child. And so she needs to be able to have peace in her own home, which means that she needs to have rules that work for her, all right? She sets the bedtime for the children. She sets all these different things because she deserves to have peace in her home. Remember, the bride, the New Jerusalem, means the new teachings of peace. The idea is to have peace within your home. Hey, I just want to thank everyone who has liked this video. And who has participated in the chat. Please continue to do so. I really appreciate it. Also, if you don't mind, subscribe, okay? Subscribe, I appreciate it. All right, back to it. So the man is the executive branch. The woman is the legislative branch within the dynamics of the home. And together, they create the Godhead, the judiciary branch, okay? It takes two who are one, unified, to make that judiciary branch, all right? So, a lot of guys, they want a woman to submit to them. The Bible even mentions women submitting to husbands. But the problem is, men have been dictators, all right? For centuries, for thousands of years, men have been dictators in the home. A family that functions well, there's a balance of power, all right? I'm going to give you an example of this. I saw this with my own eyes. I was watching a live stream, and the guy who was talking, he has a young child, and he was doing his live stream late at night, and usually he doesn't mind if the child is, up and stuff. But this live stream was a little bit late, and it was past the child's bedtime. And he thought, well, you can stay up, that's fine. And the mother shook her head no. All right. And then the father said, oh, one no means two no's. And he said, sorry, bud, you got to go to bed. And that is an example of how a good relationship should be, where a man respects a woman's house rules. It was bedtime, and that kid needed to go to bed. Now, let me explain why in this example. Women, they get wore out chasing after that little kid all day long, okay? And they need their downtime too. They need their me time too, right? So if she was like, no, he needs to go to bed, then of course he was busy doing the live stream. He wasn't going to watch that child that left it on her. That was a burden for her. All right. But maybe she was ready for the kid to go to bed. And it shouldn't have to be an argument. Husband should just say, okay, one no is two no's, right? We're unified on that. And that's how he treated that. Now, there are a lot of families, and I'm going to share from my own personal experience. I raised 4 boys, and my late husband, okay, he used to undermine me all the time, and I was very miserable in that marriage. And he let the kids watch movies that I didn't approve of. He let the kids stay up all hours of the night, okay? Watching programs that were inappropriate for young children. And we were a dysfunctional family because there was no balance of power. He overruled me. He broke my rules. He destroyed my peace. Okay? And so that is, and we were dysfunctional because of that. And anyway, I guess that's it for today. I just wanted to share this very powerful message. You know, as many people have chosen to be alone and just to find healing from all the trauma of the last several years. And now it's time to go out and find a companion, a divine counterpart that we can live out the rest of our lives with, hopefully, right? And this is something that is, but the truth must be spoken. It must be, all right? We have to look at the past so that we can correct the mistakes of the past and move towards the future. All right? Again, I want to thank everyone who hit the like button. Please subscribe, help support this message. I thank you all very much, and you have a wonderful day.